Good afternoon. Um, Making a little video today, and I was thinking about Richard as I'm always thinking about him, and I was thinking about how he was like a beautiful giving tree, always giving, always giving. Um, you know, he spent 7 years or more working on his father's legal problems. There was something that his father got involved in, and it actually took a long time to untangle that. And the same with his friend David. And he worked his ass off, so to speak, on some very complicated legal entanglements that took a long time to get out of, but he ended up getting them resolved. And if his father and if David, his friend, had gone to a lawyer, a different lawyer, they would have had to put out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It would have cost them a mini fortune or a big fortune. um, Richard did it all for free. Even though when these legal problems were resolved, there was a lot of money that came in. And his friend David was good enough to, work things out with Richard. But David got the better half, because it wasn't like David just said, okay, Richard, here's half of what you got me. And it was a big chunk of money. Trust me, it was. But, luckily it all worked out through real estate. But my point is that Richard was always giving to others, and people exploited his goodness. They exploited his loyalty, and they knew how to get him to work for free, and they knew how to get him to pay for things. And I've been reflecting on that, about how he was always giving and people were taking. Whatever he gave, people took. And one of the things I think that upset him with his son is that there were just things that, for an example, one out of quite a few things, but one of them that made him sad was he and his son were in together on this baseball situation where they bought these valuable baseball cards. And it was like a little company that they started, and they were in on it together. And Brett ended up selling these baseball cards, and he never said anything to his father about it, and he never gave anything back. And Richard, what Brett didn't know about his own father is that because Richard had such a good giving heart, if Brett had said, okay, hey, Dad, I ended up selling the baseball cards, and we went on this together. This was a company we started together, and we did it together, and you put in a certain amount of money, I put in a certain amount of money, I bought the cards, you bought some of the cards, so here's your half. Richard would probably most likely, and in fact I could say almost 100%, if Brett had said, here's your half, Richard probably would have said, no, that's okay. they were your baseball cards, and I went in on it with you. But my point is that it would have been just the offer alone is what would have counted with Richard. That's what would have meant the most to him. If Brett had just said, here's your half, Dad, that in itself would have been the payoff for Richard, because that's the kind of person he was. He was not greedy, but principles meant a lot to him. And when he told me that, yeah, Brett sold the cards and he didn't even say anything to me, didn't even offer anything to me, that's what hurt him. His father exploited him, and I know enough about it. Trust me, I lived with him for nearly 50 years, and I know by what Richard told me and as a witness that whatever, I'm not saying there wasn't a love relationship between him and his father, but his father exploited Richard like crazy. And he exploited his loyalty. He exploited his legal skills and abilities, his business abilities, and his father, in the same way with the baseball thing with Brett, Richard and his father, this is just one example out of many. Richard and his father went in on buying an oil drilling company or something. They had bought some oil wells in Bakersfield, and it was pumping out enough oil, and it was producing money. And when it came, but right behind, and it was Richard that had to go into Bakersfield, had to make the deal, had to do the legal work on it, and then his father was the one that collected all the money. And when Richard said, hey, we worked this out together, this is supposed to be a together deal, his father, would get mad at him and wouldn't talk to him, and then behind his back, he sold the oil wells without even telling Richard. And then when Richard found out, and didn't get 1 cent from it, not 1 cent. And that created a pretty bad rift between the two of them. Because again, it's the principle of it. It was like, wait a minute, we went in on this together. I did the footwork on it. I worked it all out. And then you collect the money and then you sell it and I still don't get anything. This is, how people took advantage. And his friend David, same thing. And Richard told me one time I overheard David and his father talking together. And David, his friend, and his father had a lot more in common than what Richard had in common with his father. And I say that because David was greedy and only thought of himself in a lot of ways, and his father was the same way, and they knew how to exploit Richard's good heart and his loyalty. And he said to me, I overheard David and my father talking. They didn't know that I heard, but my father they were both joking and laughing about it and saying, yeah, I know how to get Richard to do anything I want. His father said that. And he says, all I have to do is tell Richard that I'm about ready to die, and then he does anything I want for him. And Richard said, my father was using that on me all the way back when he was only like 30 years old, and he had me always scared that he was going to die, and I always was doing whatever he wanted me to do. And he used that as a trigger to make me feel guilty and make me feel like I had to do this for my dad because he's going to die at any time. And it always set like a sense of fear in him, because he was really loyal to his father, and he was very loyal to his son as well. And there are people that take and take and take, and they never give back. And then there are the givers that give and give and give. And that was Richard. He always was giving and giving and giving until his poor little heart gave out. And that makes me upset, because he was such a good, loyal person, and no one should have taken advantage of that. And I at least, feel good about giving back to him. And I used to think about things that I could get for him. It would be kind of difficult because he was hard to figure out. He had just about everything he wanted, and he was very kind of fussy about things. But forget about trying to find clothes, because he was a jean and blue t-shirt kind of guy, and he had hundreds of his favorite blue t-shirts, and you could not buy any other shirts for him. That was it, just his blue long sleeve or short sleeve navy blue t-shirts and his jeans. But I would really think long and hard, what would he really not only be able to use, but what would he love? And, for Christmas and birthday, and I'd go through this, thinking process of what can I get for him? And it was kind of difficult, but I would really, check everything out that maybe he could use and need. And I didn't care how much it was going to cost. Like the last gift that I got him not too long ago was a pair of UGG moccasin boots, and they looked really comfortable. And the reason I got them for him, I went on Amazon and I saw them. I thought, I bet you if these fit, he's going to like them. And UGG is a very high quality company, UGG, and it was a moccasin boot, and they look soft. And the reason I thought about that was a few times he talked about how his tennis shoes were hurting, and he had a toe nail that was that hurt him going all the way back when our 90-pound dog stepped on his toenail, and it never quite healed. And I talked to him about that, and I said, you shouldn't just let that go, Richard. That's kind of serious that it's not healing properly. But he never wanted to go to the doctor about anything. But he was complaining about some of his shoes not fitting well and not comfortable. So I found on Amazon, I thought, I just hope these fit, because he used to tell me, don't get me any shoes, or because they'll probably not fit and I probably won't like them. Well, I know that, because if you try to buy shoes for yourself, even you're lucky if they do end up fitting, without actually being able to try them on. If you just buy them online, if you buy them at Amazon, you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit. And but I saw these UGG moccasin boots, and I said, oh, those look so comfy. I hope they fit him. They were $150. I would never spend that much for myself. I actually ended up buying some tennis shoes online at Walmart for $14. And to tell you the truth, they're really comfortable. I love them. But my point is, I didn't care how much money I had to spend. I wanted something very high quality and comfortable for him. And I bought him that pair of moccasin UGG boots for him. And lo and behold, he tried them on. He said, oh, these are so comfortable. I was just so happy, because he was happy. and they fit him, and they ended up being his favorite boots that he wore all the time on the ranch. And then, I would try to find comfortable sweatshirts for him. I knew he didn't need any jackets. He had jackets beyond jackets. And coats or whatever, warm jackets. But I thought, well, how about a comfortable sweatshirt? And I found this cute sweatshirt that had a little Volkswagen picture up on the top right, and it was symbolic because of all of our travels together in the VW camper van, and the fact that we had 3 VW camper vans, so it had symbolic relevance. And that ended up being the one and only sweatshirt that he wore all the time on the ranch, all the time. Both of those things are gone. So I assume that Brett took them. They couldn't have just walked out. the little moccasin boots could not have opened up the door and walked out, on their own and, traveled somewhere down the road. So they're gone, and the sweatshirt's gone. There are I could go down a whole long list of things that I tried to think that he would like, including socks. I found that he absolutely loved. I found these socks that were soft wool, but on the inside kind of like a fleece. So they were real soft on the inside, but they also kept your feet real warm because they were made of wool. And he loved them. I bought like 6 pairs of them for him, and he loved those. I was just always trying to find something that he would really love. Like going all the way back, I bought a lighter for him that had horses on it, and it was a beautiful, one of the old-fashioned lighters where you flip up the lid and you light it. Not a Bic or anything. It was like a little gold where you open it up and you flick it, and it had horses on it. I bought him when we were nearly first together. We had been together maybe for a year or so, and I bought him a gold pocket watch with horses on it because I knew he always wanted to have a horse ranch. It was before he bought the horse ranch, but he talked about the horses all the time with me, and the ranch that his father had. And so this was actual gold plated, and when he opened it, it was like he was so shocked because he knew it was the real thing. He knew it was gold. He knew it wasn't like an imitation. It was the real thing. And I can tell you it was the real thing because I paid up the butt for it and with a little bit of money that I had. But he saved that to this day and wrapped it around his chest of drawers in his room, and it was tied to a little rawhide rope, and he always kept that like right there as one of his most special gifts that he ever received. And I think about, well, what did his father ever give him? What did Brett ever give him? Well, yeah, he bought birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. He went down and bought little wood boxes at a store that sells these cute little wood boxes. But in return, like, Richard bought, I believe, 2 of the containers that Brett has. Not just 1, but 2. I think he bought the second one. And it's not like Brett didn't have the money, because he did. Brett had enough money to not only buy the first one, the second one, but a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one, and a sixth one. He was not short, But, that was Richard's heart, He said, well, Brett's working on his book business, and I'm just really happy that he has this book business and that he's putting his heart and soul into it, and I just want to help him with it. So I think he ended up buying the second one. I'm not sure. You're talking about $3,000 or $4,000 for each one of these containers. So, the question is, in your life, are you a giver? Are you a taker? Most of us are a little bit of both. Richard gave to me many beautiful things. But I have always been grateful, and I never asked him, like he bought the container for me, but I didn't ask him to do that. I said, Richard, no, it's okay. I can buy it. I just need to know the name of the company and everything. And he said, no, I want to buy it for you. That was Richard. He was the giving tree. He gave and he gave and he gave and he gave until his heart gave out.